Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Vega Warriors 2 on the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are on your purpose, conquesting yourselves first, then conquesting things around you. Always a pleasure to be with you guys. In a few minutes, I want to do another video. Thank you guys, as always, for all the great comments, the likes, the donations. It's all wonderful. Once again, you know, the only purpose I'm here for is to kind of help give information out. Lots of people are talking about retention and the journey and self-control, and I think it's always good to continue doing that, to keep working on trying to better ourselves every day. All right, so we're going to talk about an interesting topic today. We're going to talk about smoking and semen retention. I think it's a very interesting topic. Our viewer Homebuddy talked about it, so I'll get into that in a second. Let me do a couple of shout-outs before we do that, and let me see where I'm at here. Let's see, who do we got? We'll do about 10 of them. We got Benspecial, thank you, my friend. Spikestoyou, had 2 of them, thank you. Jmave, thank you. WeBoggie, 30 days, so keep it up, my friend. Very good. I'm sure you're past that now. Omayekayriumph, how long on SR? Oh, I've been on SR, let's see now. I would say about 1,700 days. I think it's something like that. Monk mode, not as long, but monk mode is getting better. And there's times when I go back and forth in monk mode. Monk mode, for those who don't, I've kind of talked about before, but monk mode is not thinking about women at all. Just kind of focusing on everything except, you know, having intercourse and things like that. And that's a lot harder for anybody to do, and myself included. And so that's a little more trickier, challenging type of thing for me. But certainly, no fap and not releasing all those type of things, that's around about 1,700 days. And so I think it's kind of nice to kind of, you know, keep track of it in some way. I used to keep track of it a lot. I used to kind of tell, I think, the viewers all the time what my numbers were. And I just don't do that as much because it's a lifelong type of thing. And so I don't really focus on it that much that way. So, Omad, retention, super soldier, very good. Thank you, my friend. Dirty Mint, thank you. Rasheed, thank you, my friend. Rasheed Michael, I think. And Dawson Boyer, thank you, as usual, an old-time viewer, thank you. And then the last one, Slime Papa, thank you very much. So thank you guys for all your comments. I appreciate those. And in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, let's kind of talk about a topic. This is from our friend Homebuddy. And so I appreciate Homebuddy kind of talking about the topic here. And so I'm going to take a step back a little bit here and kind of focus on, as we look at becoming the best possible male that we can become. And most of our audience is male, so obviously I will say this as far as females go as well. But because we talk about males more often, you can try to become the best high-value male you can be. And so I personally believe you should not stick anything in your body. I'm very holistic when it comes to naturalistic types of things, to be able to be natural. This is why I go back to the semen retention, going back to being pure and trying to have the foods you can eat, trying to make sure that you're not putting a lot of chemicals in your body and things like that. So when we talk about these type of addictions, when we talk about things like overeating and eating a lot of sugar, which is one of my issues has been over the years, and looking at trying to overcome that, it's important to realize that you got to put things in your body that's going to help you. Almost your body is like a Ferrari, a car, a fast track car, and you're trying to keep it in shape. Now, you have to kind of get rid of those things that are making the body not perform well, just like a car not perform well. Like, for example, this fasting season, I'm fasting away from pop and bread, and I'm at least 2.5 weeks right now, and we're doing pretty well with this. And of course, we always have the fast and no fapping and things like that. But I'm taking other aspects of this to try to get away from things that you know are not good for my body, like the sugars and the too many carbs, especially in bread. And so I've kind of stayed away from those things, and I'm actually seeing some kind of movement in my stomach area and trying to reduce some of that fat. But something like smoking is something that can really kind of affect you. Drugs, smoking, things like that. So whether or not you smoke the regular way or you also do e-cigarettes and things like that, There is a lot of research, and I actually did some research on this before we talked about this, and I saw a number of different things that I saw in the research, and so I'll kind of give it to you guys. Now, I don't smoke. That's one of the things that I don't do. My parents smoked many years ago. Maybe I had a bad influence on that. I didn't like, the smell of that. I didn't like anything like that. So I kind of stayed away from that. And being an athlete, I kind of stayed away from that all these years as well. But the research that I found on this, and you guys can kind of take any way you want, is talking about that smoking has a negative impact on semen quality. So what does that say to us? Well, that says to us that when you want to have children, you want to procreate, smoking is going to have a negative effect on that behavior, that semen, that procreation. And so they also talk about including reduced sperm, which means that you're not going to have as much sperm coming out, especially when you want to have children. And so you're going to have a little more hard trouble doing that as well. And obviously concentration, movement, things like that. And you could lead to more reduced male fertility, which means that obviously it's going to be harder to get, to procreate with a young lady because of the smoking. Now, I don't smoke, so I've not had this experience, but this is what the research that I found is indicating. And so you guys have to kind of think to yourselves and obviously make your own decision on whether it's something important. Also talking about damaging DNA, which also could impact your fertility, and decrease in semen volume as well. And what happens is you're not getting as much semen out there. Now, part of the problem is the oxygen that you have, they call reactive oxygen in the sperm, and that can be taken away, and so you can have a decrease of that because of the smoking. And then obviously nicotine also affects the sperm production and things like that. So there's a lot of negativity when it comes to smoking and semen retention. So obviously, whether it's drugs, whether it's smoking, whether it's alcohol, all these things I think can negatively affect your natural flow and what God has given you in your temple, your body, a temple your God has given you to be able to produce and, be someone who is going to be a virile type young man and a virile young old man, a vigorous old man, right? Which is why we talk about vigor warriors. But the thing is, we talk about this, we go back to the same old thing. We know, and you guys can all know, that smoking is not necessarily good for you. Overeating is not necessarily good for you. Drugs is not necessarily good for you. And certainly pornography and releasing is not good for you. Even though we hear this in the media and people try to glamorize all these type of things, we know from experience and seeing people that this is not the best thing in the world for you. The trouble goes back to the idea of addictions. And again, this to my mind is the evil one, satanic types of influences in trying to tempt you to go to the wrong pattern. This is when we talk about these things in our society, we can always see the people who act in a very, abnormal way. A lot of them have lost God. And this is where you see this now, especially in our society. We have a lot of people who are way off, in their viewpoints, and in my mind, they're so far away from God, but that's the whole point. They're away from God. If you are someone who starts off with the foundation of the Lord and your Creator, you have a better chance to try to understand the effect of all these things in your body. And smoking is one of those things. And certainly the addiction to smoking is difficult. I've had family, friends that have smoked, and it's not easy. Some people can go ahead and cold turkey stop smoking. Other people can't. And so it's like a step-by-step process, almost the same as trying to retain and to continue to retain over a period of time. It's the same type of principle, overcoming that addiction that you have. But again, the addiction part of it, a lot of that comes from the fact that you're trying to fill in something that you think you need. And part of that is the fact that you don't have that God in yourself. You don't have that faith. And so now you're trying to fill it up with a lot of other types of things. And this is where people get into all these bad types of behaviors. A lot of times they're bored. A lot of times they don't have a purpose. And so a lot of times they get into these types of behaviors, and it makes them feel good for a temporary time, but not in the long run. So when we talk about this addiction, as we talk about all the other addictions, we're talking about something that you can control if you really want to control it. If you really put an effort to it and say, okay, I'm going to control this behavior, you'll find a way to do that. Now, it may take some steps. It may take some counseling. It may take some, looking into research, figuring out how do I stop this smoking. But it can be done as well. Same thing with losing weight. The same thing with stopping drugs. Same thing with stopping alcohol. All these things are addictions that you can stop by behaviors. The question is, do you have that willpower to do that? The willpower to me comes back to that faith and that belief in the God. And again, when you see people who are lascivious behaviors they have when it comes to, sexual behaviors, all these things that we've seen in the history of mankind. We talk about the Roman Empire, you talk about the Incas, the Mayas, the Tudors. All of them lost God. You can just tell they didn't have God. God is the one thing, the Creator is the one thing that sits there and puts you in a position of saying, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this because it's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt other people. And this is not what my God wanted. And this is where you come back to thinking, okay, this is going to keep me in line. The commandments keep me in line. I know that I cannot put things in my body that's going to hurt my body. I may make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But in the long run, you know what's going to be good for you and not good for you. And those are the types of things you learn as time goes on. So obviously smoking is one of those things that you're going to say, no, I can't keep doing this, all right? And obviously, if you're trying to have children, knowing this information and knowing that it's probably pretty true when it comes to, smoking, retention, lowering the amount of sperm, the volume of sperm, all those type of things, then you know that it's something you should probably start doing now. Now, the good thing I think it happens, just like anything else with smoking, is that you can start repairing yourself once you stop smoking. And it's always been kind of the case with that. And it just depends on when. If you got years and years of doing it, it's obviously going to take a little more time to repair. Just like we talked about 47 years of my problem, in trying to, be consistent. It took a long time for me to get out of that habit. It's the same thing we're talking about smoking. If you have a long habit of smoking, it's difficult to stop that. But your whole level of energy and testosterone will change a lot once you stop smoking. Now, the downside of stopping smoking, which I've seen a lot of people do, is that because of the oral fixation they have with the cigarette, they now have to have something else in there. So a lot of people end up gaining a lot of weight after they go ahead and stop smoking. So you have to be aware of that as well. You don't want to go ahead and put yourself and go from one addiction to another addiction, this time overeating or something else like that, putting things in your mouth, a bottle or alcohol, whatever it might be, and now you have another addiction to kind of deal with. Again, I go back to that foundation. If you're rooted in a foundation of God, then addictions may not hurt you as much. You may get caught by a temptation here and there. Say the evil one's always hanging around. But if you're able to go ahead and know that I can always lean on my God, I trust my God, my God is going to help me through these type of things, then all of a sudden you're not going to have that level of despair, depression, those type of things in which the evil one plays into. The biggest thing that the evil one does is plays in a depression. I remember a story where the devil had a bunch of cards out here, and he was able to pick one card. They was asked, "What is the card that is the one that you pick the most to go after human beings with?" And he picked the one of depression, of despair. Once a person loses hope, then the devil will come in and take him any way he wants. But you got to keep that hope, and hope is where you start. You're going to say no matter where you are in your life, you could be 20 years old, like a lot of our viewers, 30 years old, 40. You could be 63, going on 64 pretty soon, like I am. You always have hope to keep going. I have a friend in Japan, 98 years old, still building buildings and still doing things. And so the hope is always there. You're going to be hopeful until the last day you're here, and then you transition to something else. The Lord takes you and puts you somewhere else. Now, the thing is that you're always continuing to, especially as a male, always continue to protect, provide, and to create things, to build things. And this is what males do. Do not allow females or other distractions to get in your way. Those things come around, and certainly if you want to have children and procreate, that's great. But look at all these things that are going to help you. Don't allow the distractions like drugs and alcohol and overeating, those type of things, or smoking or cigarettes, whatever it might be, to stop you from achieving those goals. And that's why I talk about being holistic in a way where it's okay to have, medicine every so often if you need that. But I have found also through this journey of mine of 1,700 days, whatever it's been, I haven't been sick. All through that pandemic, that kind of stuff, when people were so scared and frightened of being sick all the time, and people were sick here and there, I didn't get sick, and I think a lot of people had the same experience with some of this, especially those retainers, ones, because there's a strength to that. You don't get sick. I think the last time I missed a day at work was 2002 or something like that. I can't even remember anymore. Now, I've had sniffles. I have different things like that, of course, but those type of things come and go fast, especially when you are taking care of what God has given you. And part of that then is learning from God and saying, this is what's important. And your body is a temple. God cannot use you for anything if you're not going to take care of yourself. And so even now, I'm walking 20,000 steps a day, trying a treadmill and a bike and weightlifting and things like that, and always continue to try to keep myself in shape, even though I'm working 65 hours a week, family, kids, those type of things. And you got to keep moving ahead.